Michael Wohlgemuth joins us now from the German think tank Open Europe Berlin. Thank you very much for joining us here on Made in Germany. If France is looking so enviously to Germany, what is there to actually be envious about?
I think two things mostly. The one is Germany has a balanced budget. Mm-hmm. You know, we are not spending more than we get in tax receipts, which is quite unusual, certainly for French government. Mm-hmm. And the other is the very high level of employment. So we went through the crisis with rather good employment results. Unemployment is as low as in this model village that we just saw.
Well, that would point to flexible labour laws, I suppose, but Germany isn't all that flexible, is it?
No, it is it's a little bit more flexible if it comes to the working week. We don't have the 35 working hours week. But German government has just introduced now minimum wages, and the labor laws are similarly restrictive. Mm-hmm. But the German export industry and certainly the SMEs, the Mittelstand in Germany, is still doing comparatively fine.
Now, Germany until now had served as a model for businesses, not just here in Europe, but around the world. Other countries were floundering during the financial crisis. Germany showed that its businesses could survive and keep their heads above the water. But the tide is changing. A raft of scary figures just last week sent out a wave of investor jitters right around the globe. In August of this year, exports began to slide by almost 6%. New orders were also down. And if we take a look at the latest data from the IFO index of the German business climate, you'll see a dramatic decrease in confidence as well as expectations. What is going on and where is all of this coming from?
Well, for some people it came as a surprise, and this was explained by external factors like the Ukraine crisis, Russia, Syria, perhaps even Ebola. And but if you look at the consumer and the producer sentiment more closely, you see that this uncertainty for private investors in Germany is rather high and has been quite high years and years before. So there's not enough private investment. If you add to this the high increasing energy costs, that energy is twice as expensive as compared to the US, for example. Mm-hmm. And in the long run, which is already starting now, if you look at demographic decline and the lack of skilled labor for the German labor market, Germany is facing problems, and investors anticipate these problems, and therefore this kind of uncertainty also explains a long-term trend that might point downwards.
Why isn't the German government spending enough, investing enough?
It could. But we have this balanced budget rule now introduced, which in a way does make sense. You know, German government could still invest more into education, some parts of the infrastructure, without having to engage in some Keynesian debt-financed spending spree. But in a way, Germany still doesn't do that because large parts of the German budget is on welfare spending, and this can hardly be touched.
Because infrastructure spending it really needs a bit of a boost. We're talking about the busiest roads and waterways in the world, which are really being neglected to a large extent.
Yeah, many people now look at bridges and buildings and certainly motorways and also the trails, and don't mention the airport in Berlin.
No, we don't want to talk about that. So what's the road ahead? Just very briefly, one sentence. Where's Germany headed and where's France and the Eurozone headed?
Perhaps both a little bit south, I would fear.
So it's going to get worse before it gets any better?
Yeah.
OK, Mr. Wohlgemuth, thank you very much for your analysis.